Wednesday, August 3rd here in fancy Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schauf, and you're in for something brand new today, if I'm being honest. We're back in RockVox Studio today. RockVox recording and production of Rochester, New York, where they feature professional podcast, voiceover, and live stream studios and production services. You can check them out at rockvox.com. It is not only me and my buddy Jared today, it is also the Deep End Bros, Adam Krautwurst, High Stakes Aficionado, and of course the sultry tones of Mike Shope. So we're glad to have those guys in here with us today.
Professional podcasts and this here at RockVox.
I am surrounded by a lot of personality here. Also a lot of fantasy knowledge. That's good.
Just oozing personality.
Yeah, who's excited to be in this box of fantasy banter for the rest of the month? We're going to be doing this once a week throughout August.
I am.
I'm excited, yeah. Two podcasts a week, 2 or 3. Well, now with Draft Sharks Invitational, like 4.
We have like 12 this week or something stupid.
It's just gross.
Today happens to be between Adam and I in Pros versus Joes last night, and then my Draft Sharks Invitational tonight, which you guys will be, broadcasting. So it's jam-packed.
Yeah, that's right.
As they say.
Yep, we'll be talking about that. We're talking to beat writers. We already did one of those this morning. You could find that on the podcast feeds. Today's focus is going to be on upside, and I'm actually going to turn things over to Mike as a moderator for these because I want some extra time to sit back and look for where I can insert fart jokes.
That'll work.
Which, of course, if we'll all edit those out at the end, but they could still be funny. Yeah, so the idea today, as you're saying, was late round guys that we've been drafting, and I don't know how many drafts it is in total, the 4 of us, but it's easily in the hundreds.
Oh yeah.
And so we have skin in the game, so to speak. And if I'm to go first, I'll say Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams of Detroit kind of embodies what a late round target sort of should be, in the sense that he's kind of boring compared to, not that the other side of this coin can't work, but rookies, camp hype guys where maybe there isn't the draft capital and we dismissed them a month or 2 ago, but now suddenly there's buzz. I mean, we'll talk about Isaiah Pacheco in here at some point, and he's sort of who I'm thinking about, but, it's not that there isn't a path for Pacheco to have success. Jamal Williams has just always been this player, and in Detroit last year, he got a lot of work even when DeAndre Swift was on the field. I mean, first half of the season or so, he played a lot. I think, again, drafters kind of avoid players that are sort of been around a long time. And in best ball, I think Williams has pretty nice value. Same head coach, a lot of sameness around him, which I think is mostly good. He's always been a guy, even with Green Bay, that coaches seem to really like. So I've got a guy who's probably going to have some usage even with Swift healthy. Swift is also, if you want this, somebody who's, some of his metrics aren't real fancy, like PFF type stuff. I mean, I don't think there's much of a chance Williams replaces him. I'm not talking like that. But the way he's been a coach's favorite, Jamal Williams, still there, paid. I think there's a pretty good likelihood that he has a decent role with Detroit. And so what is that, round 15 or so?
Yeah, no one ever wants to draft Jamal Williams. He's always viewed as like the fantasy value suck, sucking it from Aaron Jones and then away from DeAndre Swift. But yeah, he has standalone value, as you said, Mike. And we got 3 games of Jamal Williams without DeAndre Swift last season, 17 carries per game in those 3 games. So, Detroit's going to give him the ball if Swift misses time. We talked about Swift on Monday's show. He is, one of the higher injury risks among those early round backs. So I like to call Jamal Williams.
Is this how you don't start a brand new show, by starting with Jamal Williams?
Listen up, everybody. Get excited. We're going to talk about that veteran backup running back that might get you some points at some point. So, I think really you could build a value team and wind up with a good team by going through a fantasy draft and just drafting the most boring guy in every round, because nobody wants to draft the boring guy. We all play fantasy because it's fun, and it's not fun to draft a boring running back like Jamal Williams, but that's kind of the point of us being here is guys, once you get over this just being what Bill Parcells would have called a jag, he's going to give you value because he's involved all the time. And if DeAndre Swift goes down, and there is some precedent to that happening, Jamal Williams could have the keys to the offense. Plus, if you want to get more excited about Jamal Williams, all you have to do is look at any website that shows the headshots of players. That guy has the happiest headshot of any NFL player I think I've ever seen.
And he can catch it if we didn't say that.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's a boring handcuff, essentially. He's in that lower kind of end handcuffs for me. I like kind of the younger rookie backs that are coming out, and even the younger guys too. But yeah, I'm fine with Jamal Williams where he's going. I'm not sure he has like flex appeal outside of an injury for sure, but elite offensive line. They love to run the ball there. And yeah, you're right. Coach's favorite, Anthony Lynn, loved him last year. Was talking about he might be even the guy last year. So yeah, I'm fine with where he's going.
Yeah, that was
carries
when they were
9
talking
times.
about him being running back A and running back B, right?
Yeah.
And we were
Yes.
like, well, what does that mean?
Now he is gone, Lynn.
Yes, correct.
But much the same offense otherwise.
Yeah.
You would expect, I think.
Yeah, and a good point on the O-line. They return all 5 starters, 5 young guys. That's an ascending O-line. It would not surprise me if we're talking about that as like a top 5 O-line at the end of this season.
Adam, your guy here, we talked about him last night, although that might just be out this morning, our deep end broadcast for the Pros versus Joes. Your home team.
Yeah, I think you talked about him last night. We almost missed a pick because you
That's
were
right.
ranting about
That's right.
how much you hate Isaiah McKenzie.
I
I,
hate
hope he's
Isaiah
not
McKenzie.
listening. He's right down the road too at St. John Fisher University. So normally when we like to talk about guys, I like to pull up the amazing Draft Sharks profiles and go through there. I got some work to do. There's no Isaiah McKenzie information here, and that's why I put him on here. Well, let's move Isaiah up the ranks. It's not even about how great he is. It's just the slot position in the Bills offense is going to be worth something. Okay, so if he's going 14th, 15th round, maybe he's been switching now. As the slot receiver of choice in Buffalo, but Crowder is back healthy, kind of. I think he practiced yesterday. So to me, it's not even about the player. It's about the position in the Bills' pass-heavy offense and whoever wins that. So I know it might not be plus EV to draft McKenzie in the 15th and Crowder in the 17th or something like that. But listen, you're going to cut half these guys anyways. In the second half of your draft. So best ball is a little bit different, obviously, but I think it's okay to take both of them at the right price and then cut whoever doesn't win the job and get 110 targets from the one who does. So I'm on Team McKenzie now until I hear different.
Plus, you can get an Irish slot receiver like McKenzie. It goes nicely
That's
with the
right.
red beard.
That's right.
Of Adam.
You did hear different last night, but that's stopping you.
My hang up with
That's true.
McKenzie has been wondering about volume, but then I have to remind myself if I'm not a buyer on Gabe Davis, then I should probably be more interested in just buying a piece of the Buffalo slot position. And we'll see how it sorts out, but they're all going late enough. Whether you like McKenzie or Crowder or want to take a shot on Khalil Shakir, they're all going late enough that you can just take one and see what happens.
Yeah, Cole Beasley, 106, 107, and 112 targets the last 3 seasons. So that's kind of what you're hoping for if you're drafting McKenzie.
Now, the only caveat to that is they did add they want to pass to the running back more this year.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if Cook takes a bunch of those away, which is why I'm kind of on Cook there too. But we'll
If
see.
you can get 80 targets from McKenzie in the
Right.
15th round, you're doing pretty well.
Yep.
Unless you have to set him in a lineup.
I just
true.
a couple of my points on him. There just hasn't been the volume, and he's been on the team. Like the things you're hearing now are about explosiveness and elusiveness. And last year they played 19 games, and he got more than 3 targets one time. That was in New England, where he caught 11 of 12 and had a huge day when Beasley and Davis were both out.
Yep.
So when he got that chance, and to his part, the year before he had more games where he had in the 4 or 5 range. But I just can't imagine that he is their new Beasley. And I think that's what Crowder really was brought in to be. Not that they're making about the same money, and neither is making very much. Crowder's been hurt so far, and I don't think I want to read too much into McKenzie, flashing in camp. He's been talked about a lot. He's very popular with the media and the fans. He's a flashy type of player. But I want to see another week go by and see what we have in Crowder. Crowder might end up being somebody who doesn't play much in the preseason anyway because of his experience. I think he's just so close to what Beasley was. New offensive coordinator, you never know. But I just question how much volume McKenzie really gets.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think this is more of a I should have put like Bill slot receiver as the headline. I just think whoever wins the job is gonna be undervalued, and you can get them both for cheap.
Well, so Mike, and this isn't necessarily a question for this year, but if you're not excited about Isaiah McKenzie, and if Jamison Crowder is getting up there and not making a whole lot of money this year, are you hopeful for Khalil Shakir long term? Is he somebody that you're interested dynasty purposes?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the right people who do prospect work like him. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's exciting. The 5th round makes you wonder what he's worth to the Bills. And when you're the Super Bowl favorite, you have to play it a certain way, I think. Mm-hmm. You play for this year, more than a team on the other end of the spectrum. So we'll see what happens with him. Can they get away with him on their practice squad? Maybe not. Maybe he's somebody who another team comes in and grabs from you. So they'll be very interesting when it comes to roster cuts.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that they really need or would want all these guys there. There's so much overlap. Mm-hmm. And with Kumaro, who plays special teams, and Tavon Austin is there. Running back's kind of the same thing. That's an interesting situation, Buffalo.
Hey, 5th round means that he entered the league at a higher level than Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley, right?
I guess. I mean, all their receivers, Diggs is the 5th round. I mean, all their receivers. No, there's no blue chip prospect there in terms of when they were picked.
Mm-hmm. Day 3 All-Stars. So we're going to get to a bunch more individual players here, but we're talking later round upside. And, Jared, that's something that everybody always talks about, and it seems like it's nebulous. But over the past few years, we've built that into the Draft War Room on DraftSharks.com. We're projecting that upside and making our Draft War Room work in a way that helps you to highlight that upside as the draft moves on.
Yeah, I mean, everything we do at Draft Sharks is based on our projections. We're big believers in that, but we also know projections don't capture everything, right? It's just a baseline projection is what we think is most likely, but we know the range of outcomes on these guys is huge. That's why we added the 3D projections a few years ago. That's the floor projection, which is, what happens if everything goes wrong with this guy. And then the ceiling projection, what if everything goes right? So those ceiling projections for every single player are baked right into that Draft War Room. And then with the upside mode, that's just going to weigh that ceiling more heavily as you get later in your draft, which is how you should be drafting. Mm-hmm. When you get into the double-digit rounds, you don't care about floor at that point. Like Adam mentioned before, most of those guys are going to get cut, by October. So you want to try to find that 1 or 2 guy that can be a difference maker for your fantasy team, and that's what the upside mode is gonna help you do.
And if you're in the middle of a draft, your war room at some point in that second half of the draft, close to the middle, but toward the second half of it, you're going to notice all of a sudden that your wide receivers are ordered differently, or maybe your running backs, whatever position you're looking at, all of a sudden they're going to be ordered a little differently. That's because it automatically switches to upside mode. It's like, listen, guy, you're looking for backups here. This one could finish way up here, even though we haven't projected to start right here. So you want to focus on him. You can turn that off if you're annoyed and you're like, no, just show me where Jarvis Landry is. That's fine. We have a way for you to do that. But we'll switch to upside mode. We'll tell you who's going to be this year's Isaiah McKenzie as though Adam Krautwurst is looking at him.
You can turn upside mode off. I would not recommend it.
Right. I agree.
All right, Jared, back to you here for running back 42 at Fantasy Mojo, an interesting rookie.
So we've started with a boring old backup running back and a small slot receiver who's been around. I'm going to give you the exciting, young, athletic rookie, Rashad White, the Bucs' 3rd round pick.
Time for this podcast to go into upside mode.
That's right.
Exactly. And listen, I think Leonard Fournette is the Bucs starter. He was productive last year. He's good in pass protection. Tom Brady trusts him. Leonard Fournette, though, has also never played a full season in the NFL. He's missed 18 games over his 5 NFL seasons. Our injury guide has him with an 87% chance to miss some time this season. I think White is up there as one of the highest upside handcuffs you can draft. Again, 3rd round draft capital, that's pretty good in today's day and age. He's 6 foot, 214 pounds, 4.48 40 time, 98th percentile relative athletic score. So he has the size, has the athleticism. Averaged 95 rushing yards and 1.3 rushing touchdowns across his 2 seasons at Arizona State. More importantly, though, elite receiving profile. He averaged 40 receiving yards per game at Arizona State, 22% of the team's receiving yards, a big number for a running back. And he was 2nd in PFF receiving grade among 109 qualifying college running backs last season. So he looks like a perfect fit in this offense. We know Brady, throughout his entire career, and that's continued in Tampa, has targeted the running back position at an above average rate. So again, I think White is pretty much just a handcuff. But if Fournette misses time, I think White could give you running back 1 production in this offense.
What do you want to hear there in Tampa? You want to hear about whether he can pass protect, whether Brady trusts him, what the quotes sound like. A lot of that stuff is meaningless or even kind of a distraction from what's really going on, but that might have value.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, like you said, with the coach speak and the quarterback speak, what else are they supposed to say? But that's what we want out of Rachaad White. Not that he's good, that he catches. We know all that stuff. It's, does Brady trust him? One of my concerns, and I like Rachaad White. I've been drafting him in upside mode for sure. But it's the offensive line now is just in so much trouble. I think Jared wrote the article, I don't know if you've done it this year or last year, about like what the offensive line means to running back fantasy production. And it's not a ton, but man, when you lose 3 of them and you've got a statue quarterback and your running back needs to be able to block. So if Lenny goes down and White can't block, we'll see. I'm still on him. I don't want to. I'm the last guy who doesn't take guys because they can't block. But I think it means something in this situation.
Just for clarity, are we calling Tom Brady a statue or statuesque?
Both.
Okay.
He's
both. Happy birthday to 2 of the greats, Brady and Tyrod Taylor today.
Wow.
August 3rd.
Amazing.
Marv Levy, 97 today, by the way.
Wow. What a day. What a day.
Big birthday day.
Wonder how many avocados Marv is eating.
As many as he wants, hopefully. Tight ends. We haven't gotten there yet, Matt, but you've got a couple.
Yeah, and I just paired Evan Ingram and David Njoku together
Cheater.
because I don't want to make them 2 separate entries. I want to name more players, but they're also involved in the same strategy, and I think there are several different ways to approach it. I mean, first of all, it's easy at this point to forget because they've been in the league for a few years, and they've been in the league for exactly the same number of years because they both entered the league in the first round in the same 2017 draft. And that's the starting point, is both of these guys begin with abnormal talent for the position. So, say what you want about what they've done so far in the NFL. That's their starting point. Evan Ingram, disappointed the past couple years with the Giants. I think that offense was pretty well set up for him to disappoint. Jason Garrett did not do a great job in play design. The offense had lots of issues. So whatever about that. David Njoku had, I think it was his second season, had some big numbers, and we were all excited to see what was going to happen. And then the team signed Austin Hooper pretty shortly thereafter. And we haven't gotten a whole lot, but we have gotten the Browns recommitting to him. They franchised him first, then they extended him. Kevin Stefanski saying all the right things. We believe that he's turned into a complete tight end now. He's going to be a big part of what we do this year. And then the final piece for us is that they're both going so late that you don't have to bet on them, to actually bet on them. You can take them in reserve range, and if nothing happens, then you're not losing out. But there are several different ways that you can approach them, as I said at the beginning. Now, you can take either one as a tight end 2 later than I think he should be going, because when I projected these guys, they both landed inside my top 12. So I think either one makes sense as a late tight end 2 who could break out. You can wait and take both of them as your only 2 tight ends, regardless of format. Then you just need one of them to break out or both of them to be okay, and you can figure out how to play them as the season goes on. You can wait and take both as part of your wait on tight end group in a best ball draft and make them your 3. Either take one right ahead of them, take those 2 and somebody thereafter. I just think there's so much upside to Evan Ingram in what I think should be a vastly better Jaguars offense, and Njoku in what should be a much larger role this year, that I want to be in on both of those guys.
Interesting. I'm looking at Fantasy Mojo, ADP, and you've got 8 tight ends with those 2 names, Njoku and Ingram, being 7 and 8 in the rank, who go in a span of 33 picks. So, like in less than 3 rounds, that's like tight end. That's the tight end zone, really.
Yeah.
This year. I think maybe a little bit, I'm not sure how unusual that is, but there might be a sense that there's more value there than usual. People are going there for tight ends, and there's a lot of sameness in terms of how people, consider them. But yeah. I like this argument for both guys.
I've noticed that in drafts too. It's kind of a flat tight end 2 tier this season. There's a lot of guys I like. I like Njoku and Ingram. They're my 2 favorites. I think Tyler Higbee's going in that range. Gerald Everett's going in that range. I do feel like we say this every year with these later round tight ends, and they usually end up disappointing, right? But this year feels different, especially with how late you can get Ingram and Njoku. By the way, check out our Beat Writer pod series. We had Hayes Carlyon on from the Jags, Nick Carnes on from the Browns, and They did not temper our enthusiasm for these two guys at all.
And that's the thing is I feel like every year lately we're looking at that range, we're saying, yeah, but there are so many guys that I like. And what recent history shows us is that most of those guys are going to stink. Most of them are there for those reasons. These guys have two very key indicators, I think, that say they are the upside picks. It was one is the talent level that they entered with, and two, they are in potentially upside situations.
Ingram, $9 million from Jacksonville. You like the coach for him, in Peterson and in Njoku. I mean, even much bigger money. The quarterback upgrade. That's an interesting potential.
Go ahead.
If I just have to hear the coaching staff in Cleveland talk about Njoku and his blocking one more time, I'm going to scream. Like, if they just, his blocking's been so good. I don't want him blocking
That's
for fantasy. But I love Njoku. I love everything you guys said. I love that range for Ingram and Njoku. And the reason why I think that the tight end tier there's so many picks is because I think picking tight end there works for every strategy. If you miss, you can take two of them there, like Matt said. You can take an elite one and still take an upside guy like Evan Ingram or Njoku in those rounds there. I've had success doing that, especially in the tight end premium leagues. The year that I came in 5th in the main event, I started 3 tight ends the final 3 weeks. It was Gesicki, it was Goddard, and it was Ertz. And so they were all smashing every single week. So you can make builds, especially in tight end premium, where taking 2 or sometimes even 3 makes sense.
One of those tight ends was a wide receiver, though, I believe.
That is true.
Gesicki?
And now he's a left tackle.
He's
now
not
he's a left tackle.
It sounds like he's...
I don't think they've watched his college tape, if that's what they're doing with him this year.
That's right.
All right, I'm up next, and I've got Kenyon Drake next on my list. This seems to be like the very last round or 2 rounds of drafts, but with so much, there are a lot of teams like this, but really it's hard to know what the Raiders have in mind. So what do you look for? They did not give Jacobs that 5th-year option, so that can mean either thing. You can go in either direction, run the hell out of them, or just like they're moving on. New coach, new GM, make me feel like it's more the latter. And they did draft Zamir White, but Drake can catch it. And like 2 years ago, he was 7th in the league in rushing, like not that long ago. Remember, he was acquired by Arizona from Miami in the middle of the season. He's always been, for me, a guy that just like the right situation is waiting for him, and if he gets it, he could just take off. And for a minute there with Arizona, it looked like we were going to have that. He's had injuries. Really, last year with Vegas, he was kind of buried. But I don't really care. Like, it's almost free in drafts. I think he's proven to be good. He's 28, but I think he's probably, unless you get into a Brandon Bolden Abdullah thing there with the Patriots' former offensive coordinator, he should be, in my mind, the pass-catching option, maybe clearly, with Vegas. So Kenyon Drake in the last round, yeah. Did we do that last night?
We did it before the last round.
Good.
Yeah, I love it.
Had to make sure you got Kenyon Drake.
That's right.
Couldn't
Had to
wait.
make sure.
I almost didn't want to bring up Brandon Bolden. I feel like he doesn't really deserve to be brought up, but he does have that connection with Josh McDaniels. But I think Drake should be the pass catching back here. My only pushback would be like, what's the ultimate ceiling on Kenyon Drake? Like, if Josh Jacobs goes down, is he the feature guy, or is it in that case, some Drake and some Zamir White?
I think maybe. And we're talking AFC West shootouts.
Sure.
I mean, we don't know, but there is that possibility. And if they're losing in games, which they should be losing a lot of high-scoring games. I don't know. It might set up really well.
Well, plus we're talking about if Josh Jacobs went down, which would be the first piece of that ultimate ceiling. What about Zamir White? He's got a couple of ACL tears behind him. He's missed camp time already with injury stuff. So what if he's not there as well? All of a sudden it's like, well, I guess we'll throw Kenyon Drake out there a lot. And, we're talking about late, especially with Kenyon Drake. So you can mention the downside stuff, but it doesn't matter. I mean, especially once we get past our best ball rosters and we're looking at a team where we're controlling it throughout the season, if Kenyon Drake just gets nothing, then you're dumping him in the first 4 weeks for somebody who we didn't see coming.
Zamir White, like almost no receiving production
Chops,
at Georgia.
yeah.
That was James Cook, right, at Georgia.
Yep.
So
And another teammate ahead of Zamir, still ahead of Zamir White, even behind James Cook there. So he was the 3rd receiver in that backfield last year.
all right. I'm feeling even better about it.
Love it.
Somehow, Adam. Somehow I'm feeling better about last night than I already did. Adam, George Pickens is a hot name.
Love George Pickens. Did we get George Pickens last night? No, we didn't.
No.
We wanted him. We went Claypool.
Claypool.
Love.
You pick Claypool, and I go, he's hurt. And Adam goes, he is?
Check shark bites, Adam.
These injuries don't. These injuries happen. I'm at the gym for 30 minutes, and I got 90 injury updates from Mike. I'm like, what is going on?
Yes.
They're dropping like flies.
Yesterday was tough.
But yeah, I love Pickens. I think he is super talented. I think what most people do is a little bit of a head case. And I think going to Pittsburgh, going to a coach that I think deals with players like Pickens very well. I mean, the Le'Veon Bell, the Antonio Brown. No one knew how kind of crazy they were for like 5 years. So I think Pickens went to a great spot. He is a little bit buried, and the quarterback situation sucks, which is why he's going in the 15th, 16th round. But I think an injury or a surprise from Mitch Trubisky maybe could get him moving up the boards. Obviously, right now he's more of I know people love this. He's more of a best ball player. But I think Pickens has there's a road there. If somehow Deontay Johnson gets traded before the season, which I think I just made that up. I don't think that's actually don't go to the bank with that for sure. But these contract issues can be a problem sometimes for these guys. So Pickens, I think, is an absolute stud. Even when he drops the ball in camp, he doesn't drop the ball in camp. He still catches it before it hits the ground. So I love him.
He's a stud. He would have gone a lot higher if he hadn't had the torn ACL last year that basically cost him the entire season. But 5-star recruit coming to Georgia, top 5 wide receiver in his recruiting class, led the team in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns as a true freshman. And Adam, you said he's buried on the depth chart. I mean, I think he's already pretty clearly the third guy, right?
Yeah, well, that's where I figured he was.
And I think it's going to be a primarily 3 wide receiver team, right? I mean, they have nothing at tight end behind Freiermuth. So I think he's going to be on the field. And then, like you said, he's one injury or potential Deontay Johnson trade away from being a big part of that passing game.
And I'm not sure how good this team's going to be, so we should get a fair amount of probably more passing volume than they would like, because I'm sure that they would like to lean a little bit more run given who they have at quarterback. Although Mason Rudolph apparently having an amazing summer.
If he's their best quarterback, that's a big problem.
That is a problem.
Wide receiver 74.
Come on.
Climbing though, right? I mean,
with a bullet. 74 with a bullet.
That's right.
I'm curious to hear you, Jared, on Brian Robinson, because I didn't hear. I'm not crushing college tape. Didn't hear great things about him as a college player, but in Washington coaches, they have a lot to say, and it's an off season so far where we're hearing about committees and how Brian Robinson seems to really matter.
Yeah, I feel like Ron Rivera is basically telling us to draft this guy in fantasy. He compared the backfield to his Jonathan Stewart, DeAndre Williams days in Carolina. You look at those backfields, that was basically an even split between those two guys. I'm not projecting that for Robinson and Antonio Gibson, but you never know. Then Rivera talked up Robinson's between the tackles power running style last week, and kind of said basically was calling Gibson more of a finesse player, I think is how I read it. More of an outside the tackle stuff and passing game stuff. I mean, Robinson didn't have a great college career. He was stuck in loaded Alabama backfield, so you can forgive him for that a little bit. Did have a really big 2021 season, 1,300 rushing yards plus 35 catches, so we can do that. He's 225 pounds. He's a 66th percentile athlete, so he's an above average athlete. I think at minimum, he's the Antonio Gibson handcuff, because the other guy there is J.D. McKissick, and if Gibson goes down, McKissick's role is not going to change a whole lot. He's a small pass-catching back. So you'd have Robinson as the primary ball carrier, the goal line guy in the case of a Gibson injury. And Gibson has, of course, dealt with injuries in both of his first 2 NFL seasons. So that's the floor case for Robinson, I think. And I think there's a chance he gets enough work where he's a standalone fantasy option this season.
Yeah, what's the crux of running backs don't matter? It's that opportunity matters more than the specific differences in talent between the players. And everything that Washington's doing indicates that they want to give him the opportunity. Picked him in round 3, and then right away Ron Rivera's like, oh, I got my Jonathan Stewart to go with my D'Angelo Williams. You want to look for this guy between the tackles, which to us fantasy folks, I think also means near the goal line.
Yeah, and I think 3-headed backfields are so difficult, but you're not drafting him hoping for a 3-headed backfield. You're hoping, I'm not allowed to say this, but we're hoping for an injury, or just in case of an injury to Antonio Gibson. Like who would go higher in a draft? Antonio Gibson right now, or if Antonio Gibson was hurt and it was just Brian Robinson and J.D. McKissick. I think Brian Robinson would move up higher, maybe the 5th round or something like that, 5th, 6th round. So
because Gibson's out of the way. So I think you're drafting Robinson. You're drafting all these handcuffs, hoping for that opportunity. That's the whole crux behind, zero RB or hero RB
is that. So I think Robinson's, again, another one of those guys that you can take. The problem is he doesn't have the upside of even like a Kenyon Drake with injuries, because Drake's going to already get the pass down work. Unless McKissick gets hurt, I don't see Robinson getting pass down work, and you really need that to absolutely smash. But I like Brian Robinson, rookie upside. He just needs an injury, I think.
I want to take Washington and just shake it.
I know. That's right.
Every year with Rivera and Washington, just like, what are we doing? Gibson was such a hot idea when they drafted Gibson, but he was a wide receiver, and he's never come close to looking like a guy who was how we thought he would look in the NFL playing for Washington. Even though he was really good, he scored a lot that first year, but still, like, we've always been frustrated with them. They let McKissick go, and then they somehow got him back. What kind of management?
Right.
And now Robinson mixed in there. I had Curtis Samuel on this. Hey, look, I saw that look. Matt had two guys at once, all right? I can mention
3 names only.
I had Curtis Samuel on this list until this morning. Yesterday, there was a thing where maybe his conditioning is in question now, and it's just so many eye rolls with Washington, because you want, Curtis Samuel going there, great, but then he's hurt. I mean, not the fairest example. Just time after time, it seems we're sort of annoyed with them. And they also have to only compare their guys to guys he's coached previously in the league, as if the rest of the league doesn't mean anything.
Well, that just makes them perfect late-round targets, though, because you don't want to bet on this team, but somebody's going to do something. So later on, you're like, well, why not for Washington? They haven't figured it out, so I'll take the guy that's going in round 15, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, RB 54 for Robinson. So I think you're drafting him to just be a handcuff, and anything beyond that is a bonus.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Any of you guys like really sort of significantly overweight on Dotson there?
I am. Yeah, he's one of my favorite picks. No,
I don't think
to me, it's just the guy was a 16th overall pick in the NFL draft, and he's going in like the 13th or 14th round of fantasy drafts.
Yeah.
Samuel has issues. I think, there's a good chance Dotson finishes second on that team in targets.
Pretty good camp hype so far for what that's worth, too.
And he's like 20 positional ADP spots behind Sky Moore, who, by the way, came off the NFL draft board as the 13th receiver, I think, versus the number 5 for Dotson.
I didn't even like Dotson coming out, but I do think he's like pretty pro ready, and he got the draft capital.
It's true.
Anybody on Christian Watson at all?
No.
Not even the Packers right now, I think.
How about that? Right. Cautionary tale, maybe. Well, speaking of receivers, Will Fuller. This was interesting.
The War Room.
Last night.
Yeah.
The War Room put us on Will Fuller, and we drafted him, and then it was like ADP was maybe 3 rounds later. But started to get exciting thinking about landing spots, taking that. This is your guy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like, he doesn't have a team yet, which is the only reason his ADP is down there. Maybe he doesn't sign with anybody, so it makes it easier to draft him. If you're a high-volume best ball drafter, or if it's a managed league where you can drop him early, if he still doesn't have a team come September, I have a hard time believing that nobody signs William Fuller before week 1, though. And right now, he is wide receiver 85 on Underdog, wide receiver 76 on FFPC. Where in the league could he possibly sign and still be at either of those spots the next day in drafts? Mm-hmm. So right now, you should be taking some Will Fuller. And if you want to, hedge your bets by not taking him too much, that's fine. But I think you definitely want to be in on this price of William Fuller, because if he lands in Chicago tomorrow, if he signs with Denver after the Tim Patrick
Dallas.
Dallas. And basically,
Yeah.
and there you can name at least, you can name so many teams where you're like, oh yeah, if he was there, I'd take him in round 10 right now. So take him right now, and he's in round 17.
Yeah, I mean, Julio went to a horrible spot for fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, might be the 4th option there, and he's going. I forget where he went last night, but I think he's going like the 11th, 12th, 10th, somewhere in there. I'm 100%. So we took a Fuller in the 15th round last night, which may be a round or so early based on ADP. I'm 100% sure that if Will Fuller gets picked up, that he's going to go in the 11th, 10th, depending on where he goes. If he goes to like the Cowboys, my God, the sky's the limit. I'm 100% sure about that. Now, I'm 100%. I don't even know if he's alive, to be honest with you, but I'm 100% certain that his ADP will rise once he gets picked up by someone, and I think he has to. I don't know what's going on.
We got literally like the first report on Fuller that we'd gotten in months a few days ago from Aaron Wilson, who said teams are monitoring him, and I think the report was he's more likely to sign later in the preseason.
Yeah, what does that mean to
At least-
monitor him? Like they have
At least,
CCTV
at least we know
cameras
he's
in his
alive.
house?
At
Like,
least
what
we
is
know
that?
he's alive.
That's right.
Yeah, we're all monitoring him. Why wouldn't teams be? Hopefully they remember Will Fuller.
Yeah.
How many cars are parked outside of his house right now? People like, where's he going? Is that a Burger
He's
King
doing
bag?
sit-ups with T.O. in the driveway.
I love monitoring. You know, somebody sees him on the street, they just stop,
That's
look
right.
at him. Where's that guy going? But we should be watching where he goes.
That's right.
Watch what building he walks into. Can you have a show like this on this subject and not even mention Paris Campbell? I mean, I think, I guess you could, but he's always been a favorite of mine, and here we are again. I mean, you hear on podcasts the name Paris Campbell comes up, and somebody snickers or somebody laughs, and it's like you can't even do this anymore. But he is still very young, just turned 25, and I think of the Christian McCaffrey case when it comes to injuries when I think of Paris Campbell, because I think this is the majority probably, but certainly not everybody, who looks at McCaffrey's injury history and goes, yeah, I don't care. It's nothing chronic or nothing that should necessarily mean anything toward his injury risk this year, or not as much as, others would say. I mean, Campbell had a broken foot. He was in a car accident in August a couple of years ago. I know that. And then last year he was hurt too. So he has an injury history, and that's the whole point. That's really the whole argument against him is injuries, because super talented. And now he's on a team with a quarterback that, for the most part, people are kind of hot for throwing the ball. I mean, they do have Jonathan Taylor. I don't think the Colts will be necessarily hugely different, but better in the air. And then what were we talking about after Michael Pittman? It's so unknown. So
That's right.
So far, training camp sounds like it could be Campbell's to lose, and there's a ton of potential there if he actually stays on the field. It's always the thing, and gets with Matt Ryan. So I'm back every year. I'm to Paris Campbell, and here I am again.
I'm a big Alec Pierce guy. That's the only thing holding me off Campbell. But it does sound like Campbell's even playing in 2 wide receiver sets for the Colts, which is important because they're such a heavy 2 tight end team. You want that guy who's going to be on the field when they're in 2 wide, and that's been Campbell so far. So buzzy camp for him. It's been a buzzy offseason for Matt Ryan basically since they signed him. Like everyone's talked about how awesome he's been relative to Carson Wentz, which he isn't tough to look good versus Carson Wentz, I guess. But I'm definitely in on that Colts offense, and it does seem like Campbell, at least to open the season, is going to be the guy you want outside of Pittman.
For what it's worth, Campbell's only played 15 games through 3 seasons, and yet in the Draft Sharks injury guide, he still comes up as low risk for injury this season. And I checked through the history just to make sure we're not missing injuries. We got him listed. So whatever the algorithm needs to project those numbers, it's not super worried about Paris Campbell's health.
He's fresh, Adam.
He is
He's
fresh.
fresh.
Right.
Do.
Like Christian McCaffrey, he's fresh.
15-4 last night in Pros versus Joes. We went Fuller at 15-5.
Love Fuller.
Wan'Dale Robinson, not on today's show, 15-3.
He is on today's show.
Oh,
Well, what's this?
Oh, wow.
There's Wan'Dale. You want to
Breaking
just go
news.
there now, or do you want to go in order?
Oh, I
Let's give
wonder
Adam
how
the
Mike
floor.
managed to overlook him.
I think it was the apostrophe. I don't know. No excuse for that. And there's Romeo Dubs or Dubes. I'm not sure, but that was also
Who knows?
15th round last night.
there you
Interesting.
go. It's a hot round.
All right. Well, I've given everything away. Let's go in order. We'll get better. Isaiah Pacheco. This will be fun.
Yeah, I just heard of him about a week ago. 96% spark athletes, 4.37 40. It's just a bet on him making the team and then at some point being something. So I've been taking him in the late rounds of every draft. He's kind of been creeping up in the last week. So he's been running with the ones. I know a lot of running backs run with the ones, but there's been some buzz. And I think he's just worth taking. And then in the later rounds, maybe CEH just stinks. Maybe he needs his wisdom teeth pulled and he'll miss another 6 weeks or something. But just a bet on the Kansas City backfield.
Yeah, and I'll throw in my stock. This is why I hate Jerick McKinnon, and that's why it helps Pacheco, because Jerick McKinnon had the great playoffs, and otherwise barely touched the ball last year. And you can say, well, he was getting used to the offense. He was getting healthy. Then when the games mattered most, they gave him the ball. Maybe that's the case, but that's the same reason that we were taking Damian Williams 5 years ago in the 4th round after he had the big playoffs, after Kareem Hunt, went bye-bye. So I need to see more than that from Jerick McKinnon, who's on the wrong side of 30 and lingered on the open market before Kansas City was like, all right, buddy, come on back in the door. And now to hear that Pacheco is working ahead of him in practices, that's all I need. I'm out on McKinnon. I'm in on Pacheco.
Yeah, I think Chiefs running back is the argument in favor of Pacheco. Right. I don't want to bet on McKinnon. I don't want to bet on Ronald Jones. I don't even really want to bet on CEH, honestly. Like, he's going so late where I have taken some shots on him, but and I do think it's significant that Pacheco as a 7th round rookie is getting first team reps, even if it's just mixing in here or there. I think that means something.
Yeah, you don't want to overrate it, but the significance is you don't have to say, I think he can work in. You say the team's already giving him shots at it, so we'll see what happens.
Interesting player that is a relatively new name, I think, to most even heavy drafters this summer. I mean, there was really no Isaiah Pacheco happening in any of those underdog drafts. I might have him in one just for the heck of it. Maybe it was super late.
Yep.
At night.
I mean, yeah, that's right.
The first time I heard his name was from Matt Waldman, who I know we all respect as a film guy. Yeah. He liked Pacheco. The college stats are pretty underwhelming. The advanced metrics are pretty underwhelming. But I know Waldman liked the tape, so that means something to me.
And the athleticism is great.
Yeah.
Mario Puig, RotoWire, one of my favorite guys to read. When Pacheco's name came up, he said he should beat out everybody else there.
Oh.
Perfect. You heard it there, Mario.
Or words to that effect.
Super
That's the impression
Mario.
it left on me. He did the same thing with James Robinson a couple of years ago. You beat out everybody else there.
You might find limited buzz, too, because nobody knows how to spell his name. It's going to be spelled different ways, so searching it up is going to be difficult.
It's missing an A.
Nice job on the prep sheet here, getting it right. And there's Wan'Dale Robinson. What do you know? It's true.
There he is. It's true.
Well, yeah. So I'll start. Let's start with the bad, the knock against Wan'Dale Robinson. He's really small. He's 178 pounds. He has like T-Rex arms, I think. But that's the only knock I can find against him. I mean, he was 3rd in the country in catches last year, 104 catches. 11th in the country in receiving yards. He was top 5 among 251 qualifiers in both yards per route run and PFF receiving grade last year. That fellow 2 seasons at Nebraska, he was like a hybrid running back wide receiver, which I kind of like as the profile. And we've already seen the Giants potentially using him in that role a bit. He's been lining up in the backfield at camp, going in motion, doing all sorts of creative stuff with him. My favorite thing about Robinson, too, is that, he was the 43rd overall pick in this spring's draft, 8th wide receiver off the board, and he is the only receiver there. Not Kenny Galladay, not Kadarius Toney, not Darius Slayton. This new regime has no ties to those guys.
Yep.
Wan'Dale Robinson is the guy Brian Dable and Joe Shane, their new GM, handpicked, and they spent big draft capital on him. So it already looks like Robinson's locked into a top 3 wide receiver role there. And I like Kadarius Toney. He's still a question mark. Kenny Galladay's coming off a rough season. So I think Robinson could end up playing a really big role for this offense.
Mike, I care a lot about name pronunciations. Can I get an official pronunciation on Brian Dable? Dable? Dabble?
It's Dable to me, but Dable. I do hear it different.
Okay.
I would like to think that in however many years at WGR, when Dable was the Bills' offensive coordinator, somebody would have corrected me.
Right.
And I think everybody else there says it the same way. So it's Dable, I think.
Right. I'm officially on the Dable train, too, then.
Okay.
What about Wan'Dale Robinson, Adam?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Jared said. He went to Kentucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I started at Nebraska and then
I was in Kentucky. I go to there for the KFFSC the last couple of years, and I remember walking through the casino, and some guys wearing a Kentucky jersey just was placing a bet at the sports book, and he just like, you guys got to bet Kentucky. They're going to be really good this year. I'm like, and he's talking about this guy Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? He nailed it. Kentucky was really good. Wan'Dale was really good. Here he is, and you're right. He was picked by them, and it, kind of a plug for Toney is I thought Toney might have been going into this year like that gadget guy, but he is looking more like he might be in that Steph Diggs role for them. So, which is great for Kadarius Toney, and great for Wan'Dale Robinson. He's certainly worth picking. Those might be the top 2 receivers there. I was on Galladay earlier in the year, but I haven't heard a ton on him, and I feel like, again, he's a holdover, so they might not really be into him.
Solely best ball for me on Galladay.
Yeah, there you go.
Wan'Dale Robinson, just like a smaller Rondale Moore. You got to love that.
That's right.
All right. Great name to end with here when we talk about prospects. Late round upside targets. Romeo Dubes. I'm not sure if that's right, but
I
that's
don't
what
think
it looks
it
like.
is.
Nobody's sure if it's
I don't
right.
think
That's
it
part of the
is.
fun. Is you can pronounce. He's young enough in his NFL career. You can pronounce it however you want. Could be Dubes, could be Dubs, could be Dobbs. I think it's supposed to be Dobbs. I think we will all know better very soon because he's been doing nothing but generating buzz since he got to Green Bay. It started in the spring. You know, you read reports like the defense has been impressed with him ever since he started practicing. They've talked about his polish. Jared CC'd me this morning on this video clip of him outrunning Eric Stokes, who was an early second-round cornerback pick by the Packers over the past few years, and ran a sub-4 340. So Romeo Dobbs is fast.
He's a 4-1 guy.
Like everything, there's nothing negative. Nobody's like, all right, guys, today is the pump the brakes on Dobbs day. There's nobody. Everybody there is excited. And the biggest factor driving that for his fantasy upside is we're talking about a pass catching core that loses Devontae Adams and has no sure answers. I mean, Allen Lazard is supposedly the new number one, and Aaron Rodgers is talking like he's the new number one, but I don't think that we're looking at a number one anywhere close to what Devontae Adams' territory was. So even if Allen Lazard's the leader, there's plenty of room alongside him. Dobbs sure looks like the favorite to, I don't know, land in that number 2 spot. Randall Cobb is there, I guess, and it depends on how much Aaron Rodgers leans on safety versus upside. But that's what's been pulling me to Dobbs, and I think is what's going to make me even chase him up now that he's climbing a few rounds. As long as it stays late enough. I'm not chasing him wherever he goes. Round 12, Romeo Dobbs is probably not for me. But as long as he stays in that round 15-plus range, they talk about him being polished, being NFL ready. So I'm in at the bottom of my roster, and I think it's somebody that could really contribute early on.
According to Packers.com from earlier this spring, Dubs, like you're saying, or no, Dobbs, like you're saying, but Dubs is his nickname, and he's fine with both.
Oh, perfect.
Dubs is out.
That's not a nickname.
That clears it up.
That's like me being okay when people call me Schaff. That's not a nickname. That's just you going along with people.
Or shop talk.
It sounds like a
That's
mistake.
That's right.
But so Dobbs, but Dubs you can get away with. Dubs is out. Dobbs, forget it. Not even close.
Can we get away with shop or no?
Not when I'm in the room. Dobbs it is. Okay. That's about all we have for tonight. For today. Tonight is the first league draft of the Draft Sharks Invitational. I'll be in there. You guys will all be chirping?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Talking lots of nonsense.
JJ Zacharyson, Evan Silva, Darren Armani, Darren's Revenge tonight. After
Well,
last
you
night.
know who he loves now or doesn't love to take. You know those players.
I guess maybe that's useful. Very different format. Fun, interesting, challenging format.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be on Fan Tracks, and so it's going to be a blast. This is always the best time of year. These are the probably 6 hardest drafts that you'll find anywhere. It's the handpicked analysts and handpicked high stakes players. So the winner of this will be crowned. I think we got a bigger prize pool this year too, right? If I'm not correct, I'll have to
Yeah, we bumped it up.
find that out.
And this is the first draft, so we'll
Before.
still have plenty of energy. By
That's
the 6th one, we're like
That's right.
slouching our chairs.
Yeah, that's right.
Jared says we, but he's the one slouching. I'll still have the energy going like a cup of espresso on
Not
the
me.
6th night. Yeah, first of 6 Draft Sharks Invitationals drafts tonight. They're all going to be on Fan Tracks. We're going to be streaming all of them live, all with analysts with high stakes players you should know that you do know if you watched them the past few years, and we'll intro everybody as we get into them. We get to watch and see how they draft, so we not only get to prepare for our upcoming drafts and that, but our drafts all around. We can see what these guys are doing and either mimic or mock it, depending on what they do.
It's only fair given that we got to go last in Pros versus Joes. We didn't pick Tim Patrick.
That's right.
He went in all the other drafts.
And speaking of someone who has 0 Tim Patrick shares, that's Chad Schrader, last year's champion. He doesn't draft till August 1st, so
That's
he's got
crazy.
no Tim Patrick shares. And Pete Overzet is also in this event, the winner year 1.
Yeah, so 3rd annual Draft Sharks Invitational. Look for that tonight. Look for our Beat Writer series, which is ongoing. We had one of those already Wednesday morning. We got another one Wednesday afternoon. Bunch more coming throughout. You can find all the podcasts on draftsharks.com, on our YouTube channel, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. If you go to draftsharks.com, though, you can also become a DS Insider. You can see our full 3D projections that we made reference to earlier on the rankings page for any position. You can find the Draft War Room. You can build your own Draft War Room so that it uses knows your league scoring, your league's lineup settings, and it hits you with the proper upside mode at the right time in your draft. So you can take advantage of these late round guys that we've been talking about here. For Mike Shope, for Adam Krautwurst, for Jared Smolla, for the entire Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.